Idam Guruna Namandala Kamaya Dayami Ichadan Soki Chana Chanchu Padu Dani Kasuji Daki Chashegi Besanangi Dala Penshir Sangye Shubasho Sangye Chudan Soki Chanama Chanchu Padu Dani Kasuji Dagi Cheshegi Besanangi Shola Penshir Sangye Chupasho Sangye Chodan Sogi Chonara Chanchu Padu Dani Kasuchi Daki Cheshegi Besanangi Shola Penshir Sangye Chupasho. I'd like to thank the people who brought the flowers, okay? Doesn't really... I think it's the best offering as flowers. Has a lot of meaning. Today I get to the subject of mental afflictions. And for me, as I said, it was always the thing that that frustrated me the most. You know, I would hear explanations of emptiness or read explanations of emptiness. And then I understood that I would like to get rid of my mental afflictions. Like even before I became a Buddhist, I knew that my jealousy or my pride or my desire were hurting me, you know, and that they were unpleasant. And you don't have to be a Buddha. I think you just have to be a semi-sensitive person to know that most of the trouble in your life is caused by your own mental afflictions. You know, the bad thoughts in your own mind. And one of the reasons I became a Buddhist, maybe the main reason, was to, you know, could I remove those mental afflictions, you know. And removing mental afflictions is closely tied to stopping bad karma. Okay, if you had to outline, if everything we said yesterday was true, you know, if all this stuff about projections and karmic seeds and imprints in your mind caused by what you said or did before, arranging your world, you know, bad imprints arrange it like a bug's world, good imprints arrange it like a human's world, perfect imprints arrange it like a tantric deity's world, then if that's all true, then to me, we have 3 tasks ahead of us. And I'll just write them down, okay? You know, if everything we've said so far, sometimes I think we shouldn't even call it karma. Sometimes I think we should just call it imprints. You know, imprints in your mind. The imprints that when they flower, they create your reality. The imprints that are creating your reality. I think if you buy this whole theory that we presented yesterday, if you buy it, then there's 3 things we got to be doing. One is to stop making new bad imprints in our mind, okay? I should say purify our minds, right? Clean out the old bad imprints that are already in there. Okay? To me, this is the strategy. I work in a business office, right? We're always doing strategic meetings, You say, okay, what's our strategy? Sell more, make more money. Now, it's to stop making new bad karma, purify the old bad karma, clean out the old bad karmic imprints. And then what would be one more thing I think of? Yeah, you gotta collect some I think you'd have to collect perfect imprints, Like once you've heard this whole theory, you don't even want the imprints to be like this anymore. Because this is mortal, and this degenerates. Even the good karma that we have is not very satisfactory. So we're talking perfect imprints or perfect karma. I mean, that's our task. These three things is our task today. We have to cover all this in like a couple hours, okay? I'm going to talk about the first one in the morning session, okay? How to stop making bad karma. Bad karma or bad imprints are put in your mind by anything negative that you say, do, or think, okay? And students who have been in the classes in New York know the thinking karmas are the raw karma. It's thoughts which are the rawest form of karma. Fourth chapter, Abhidharmakosha. Leni Sambo Dangdeche. Karma, the raw material of karma is thoughts. 64 microseconds of thought in a finger snap. In that much time, you have created 64 subtle imprints on your mind just by sitting there and thinking. Just by sitting there and having a mind, you are putting imprints in your mind at that speed. The ones you're aware of, like, okay, I yelled at somebody yesterday. This morning I got jealous when I heard someone, good teacher, was coming to New York. Those are specific karmas that took a minute or two to think about, or maybe half an hour. But here we're talking about the collection of karma is very subtle and very dangerous. It's happening at an instantaneous rate in your mind. And it's not like you have to wait until you blow up at somebody or you get some huge desire for something or something like that. These little ones are going all the time. Tiny karmas are being collected all the time. So how do you stop it? And supposedly, if we look at the definition of nirvana, what stops it? Seeing emptiness directly and putting into applying the principles you learned on the day you saw emptiness. Applying the four Narya truths. Okay? All right? So, I worked for years on trying to understand the connection between emptiness and stopping mental afflictions. And a lot of the answers are in the Diamond Cutter. Most of the answers are in the Madhyamika Avatar of Chandrakirti. So we'll go through those two. We'll take pieces from each. First thing to understand, there's a section in the Diamond Cutter where Subhuti is talking, and he says, I'm a arhat. He says, I'm an arhat. And there was a point at which the Buddha came to me and said, it's called lung demba. You touch somebody like that and you say, okay, at October 3rd, 1998, 4 o'clock, you are going to reach nirvana. It's called lung demba. And you put your hand on the person and you say, this is a thing that Buddhists run around doing from time to time. Okay? And they can't do it until you reach a certain point, right? Until you reach a certain point of understanding emptiness, they can't do it because nobody knows. But they give you lung demba. And Subhuti goes into this thing about, but if I had thought that he was giving me lung demba, I wouldn't have been an arhat. So what's the spiel? What's going on? To understand that statement, that Subhuti says, I did get this prediction from the Buddha, but I couldn't have gotten it if I had thought of it as a prediction. And then Chanidapa Sherup and other lamas go into what does he mean when he say if he had thought of it as a prediction. And to understand that, you have to understand a principle called the three elements. Okay? The three elements of any action. Okay? It's called korsum. How is it that someone sees something as self-existent? And why does that cause mental afflictions? Okay? And that's all tied up in the question of korsum. Kor means a circle. It can mean a sphere, for example. The word for samsara is korwa. But this just means the three elements in any kind of, the three elements that are going on anytime anything happens. What's an example? If someone's giving you a lung demba, then the person giving the prediction is a projection of yours. They are not self-existent. The person giving the prediction is not self-existent. And the giving of the prediction is not self-existent. And some lamas add a fourth one, which is the prediction itself, or if you're giving a gift to somebody, it's the stuff that you're giving. The person getting the gift, the person giving the gift, the event, and then some people add the material of the gift. If I give you a pen, then it's the pen. Okay? Each one of those things is dependently originating, is not self-existent. Okay? Each one of those things is not self-existent. It's necessary to understand that in order to stop your mental afflictions. And if you can stop your mental afflictions, you stop your bad karma. Okay? So you must get into this mode of seeing the three elements in any action. What's going on with the guy who's doing it to me? What's going on with me? And what's going on with the action itself? Where did it all come from? What is the emptiness of this situation? And the emptiness boils down to the emptiness of the guy who's doing it to you, prediction, the emptiness of the predicting, the whole action, and the emptiness of me. And if you understand that, you can stop your mental afflictions. Then the Buddha later in the DiamondCutterSutra, he gives an example. Okay? I liked it. It's really cool. Once upon a time, he says, there was a king named the King of Kalinka. It sounds like calling card, right? So there's the King of Kalinka. And he had this huge, kings in ancient India, they had all these towns, puras, right, that they owned. And they own everybody in the town, and every object that everybody owns. And then they usually had these forests that they like to go out hunting and things like that, like the kings of England or something, that they would have their own special forest that they would go out and go hunting in. So, and then the queens would go out picking flowers in them, right? Very sexist thing, they're supposed to go out and pick flowers. So, so it happened in the King of Kalinka's kingdom that there was a certain ascetic. I believe he's called Tangsom Supamawa, but I'm not sure, which means the patient one. But I'm not sure if it's the same person. And he goes into the forest that's owned by this king, and he puts his back up against a tree, and he goes into meditation. And he's meditating in the forest. He's just minding his own business. Okay? And the queens are out picking flowers. The king is out hunting on his horses with his other hunting companions, all his guard, his bodyguard, these big, rough, violent guys, And the queen is walking through the forest, and she sees this monk meditating there. I'm not sure if he's a monk, I can't remember, probably. And she is very impressed. She's always wanted to meet a Buddhist person, always wanted to learn about Buddhism. So she sits down and says, could you teach me some things? I want to ask you some questions. And she really is very pure-hearted, and she really wants to know these things. And he's really very pure-hearted, and he's teaching her. And they're sitting there having a conversation. And who should show up but the king on his horse with all his weapons, And he sees this guy talking to his queen, and he gets furious. and he assumes there's been some monkey business or something. And so he orders his men to dismount. They strip the sage, they spread eagle him, tie him down, and they start cutting off his limbs. You know, he says, start with the small joints, you know, cut off the tip of his fingers first, and then work your way down to the stumps, you know, and then cut off his hand, and then cut his arm off at the elbow, and then do it with his toes, and like that. Okay, and this actually happened, and that sage was the Buddha before he became enlightened. He was a Buddhist sage. So most of the stories like the Jataka tales or the stories of past lives are the Buddha himself describing the mistakes he made or describing his own personal life in the past. In the DiamondCutterSutra, the Buddha says, you know, Subhuti, do you think I got mad at the king while he was slowly cutting off my fingers, you know, joint by joint, knuckle by knuckle? And he says, no, I didn't feel any anger at all. You know, and then it's like, how come you didn't feel any anger? You know, why didn't you feel any anger? And it's because he understood the three spheres. Okay, he understood the three elements of the action of having his fingers cut off. First of all, what are the three elements there? There's the kari, the cutter, and the cutting. Okay, there's the people with the knives. There's the guy losing his knuckles, and then there's the act. You know, why did the whole thing happen in the first place? The event itself. You know, this whole terrible event. What happened? And why was it that if this saint saw the emptiness of those three elements, that he didn't get angry? And the subject here in the Diamond Cutter is how to overcome your mental afflictions. Okay, because needless to say, if you don't get angry at the guy who's cutting your fingers off, you're not going to collect any bad karma towards him. Okay, so there's a connection there. All right. To understand this part fully, you know, why didn't he get angry? You have to study, in my opinion, you have to go to another book. Okay, this is called the Gyu Lama. Say Gyu Lama. Gyu Lama. Sanskrit name is the Uttara Tantra. Okay, it's not a tantra. Okay, that's the first thing. I can't teach tantra here. So it's called tantra, but it's not tantra. This tantra means short book. Okay, or it has a special meaning of like a stream, but it is not a secret book. Okay, it's called tantra because for other reasons. Okay, this is one of the 5 great books of Maitreya. Okay, that he taught to his Sangha. All right, this is one of the 5 great books of the coming Buddha. All right, according to us, he's already a Buddha. So actually, what you're about to learn is the direct statement of a Buddha. Okay, you've already had one thing from Maitreya yesterday. Do you remember? Yeah, the short definition of bodhicitta. Okay, so now you get from the same dude the process, the connection between seeing things as self-existent and having mental afflictions. And when I saw that, I was like, finally, you know, finally somebody made a connection. You know, now I get it. Okay, and I really like it. I'm very excited about it. You know, and he clearly goes through that in the root text and in his commentary. Okay, in the classical commentary on it. And I wrote it down so I wouldn't mess it up. Okay. This is something you should really know well, okay? And you don't have to do it in Tibet. I mean, I'll put the English here also. This is how not understanding emptiness causes mental afflictions and all of our suffering. Okay. There's going to be 5 steps. 6, sorry. Say Dangzin, Niki, Bakchak. Dangzin, Niki, Bakchak. Bakchak means a mental seed. Okay, a mental seed. Ni means 2. Dangzin means the tendency to see things as self-existent, the tendency to hold things as self-existent. Okay. So this is how the trouble starts. This is a historical account of how we got in trouble. All right. It starts with these 2 seeds, these 2 kinds of seeds in your mind when you are conceived. Okay? So it's not your fault. It was that last guy. Okay? He left you. He died, he or she died with seeds in his or her mind for seeing things as self-existent. All right? And so when that mind came into a new egg, womb, wet, warmth and moisture, or a miracle thing, those were parked in the mind when it started. The seed for those 2 tendencies, to see things as self-existent, were parked in the mind when we started. By the way, the two kinds of holding things self-existent are to hold you as self-existent, meaning Tessie. When I say car, what happens? When I say Tessie, what happens? The whole Tessie. And then the other kind of Dangzin is to hold Tessie's parts as being self-existent. My arm is self-existent, my mind is self-existent, my memory is self-existent, things like that. Okay. To put it basically, it's like original sin, okay? I mean, your mind, these 2 things were parked in your mind when you were born, when you were conceived. In the first moment of conception, the mind that entered your mother's womb already had in it the seeds for 2 kinds of misunderstanding the world. Okay? Those seeds were there. And they are present in every living creature who's not, an arhat or a Buddha. Okay? Every living creature has them. Ants have them, roaches have them, amoebas have them, lions and tigers have them. Every living creature has them. Okay? So you see, it doesn't have to be an intellectual thing. Okay? Just remember, if amoebas have it, then it can't be some kind of thing where you're sitting there, this temple is self-existent, and you're smoking a pipe, and yeah, self-existent, it's not like that. It's some kind of undercurrent that infects your mind stream. It's an undercurrent that infects every single perception you ever have. It's there in the background all the time. And it doesn't have to be clearly, intellectually, worked out. Like that. Yeah?
Do you mind going more into the difference of the 2 vaccines?
One is holding Elizabeth to be self-existent, for you. For everybody, it's themselves. Okay? That's the one thing I have to say. For everybody, it's yourself. Okay? for Mary, it's Mary. You know, when Mary holds Mary to be self-existent, that's called kansaki dangzin, holding the person, yourself, to be self-existent. Then they say chögi dangzin, which means holding dharmas to be self-existent. But these dharmas are more specific. They are your parts. That word dharma means your parts. So she's holding her mind to be self-existent, she's holding her arm to be self-existent, all the skandhas, you know, all the 5 parts of a person. To hold them, to focus on them individually, and to believe they are self-existent is the second kind. To focus on them as a whole, and especially on the concept of Elizabeth as being self-existent is the first kind. It is because, you know, why do they do that? There is this argument about which one you see first. You know, which emptiness do you see first? The emptiness of Elizabeth or the emptiness of Elizabeth's parts? And then obviously there's a clue there about how to get out of it, because there's that round, white, shiny, long, black, thin thing. You know, if you can analyze the parts, you can see the thing's emptiness more easily. Okay. You do, of course you do. But the one which is ignorance, the one which is the first link of the wheel of life, very important, is called jikta. Jikta means the view of the perishable assemblage, okay? But it refers to a specific kind of ignorance, which is an ignorance about me and mine. Okay? And that's the one that triggers samsara. It's not holding this building to be self-existent that causes most of the trouble. It's the specific ignorance about your own self. Ngada ngayon zimbe jikta is the first link in the 12 of the wheel of life. It is the blind man. You know, it is the one that triggers all evils. Okay? All right. Say dagzin, ni, dangzin, ni. Because you were born with the mental seeds for these 2 forms of holding things to be self-existent, they grow. That's number 2, which this says the 2 forms of holding things to be self-existent. Holding you to be self-existent and holding the things that relate to you to be self-existent. So in the number 1, you just have the seed for it. In number 2, it has become a reality for you. You started to see things as self-existent. Okay? So the process is going like this through time. You're born with these 2 seeds. Probably about a half a second later, they grow. You start to, the first perception you ever have, which I like to say is probably some primitive awareness of the warmth, or some primitive irritation with the motion in your mother's womb, or something. The first awareness you ever have in this life is already infected by believing that it's self-existent. You know, that tiny, tiny 2-celled thing that has its first experience of warmth is already thinking of that warmth as self-existent. So now you see how subtle it is and how insidious it is. It's in your, it's parked, the seeds come with you from your past life, and within the womb already, those seeds have grown into the attitude or the perception of things as being self-existent. It's already infecting your mind at that point. They've already grown. That's step number 2. Okay, yeah.
What if somebody has a direct perception of emptiness, and in the next life they're reborn? Then they wouldn't be born with those seeds, and then they will continue to. You say that they start out as a normal person.
You don't remove the seeds till you become an arhat. So even the moment that they came down out of the perception of emptiness directly, you only lose one little part of your tendency to see things as self-existent forever. It's called Denzin Kuntan, which means the intellectual belief that things are self-existent. Like if somebody asked you, are things self-existent, you'd say, no. If someone asked you after that moment, are you seeing things correctly, you'd say, no. Okay? and so from one point of view, you have destroyed one part of your tendency to see things as self-existent, which is the intellectual one. You know, no one ever after that could ever talk you into believing that things are self-existent. So that you achieve a cessation for that mental affliction, for the intellectual or the overt belief in self-existence. If people said, are things self-existent? You say, no way. Could anybody ever talk you out of it? No way. It's a cessation. That's a real cessation. Only two things are abandoned at the path of seeing, two main things, forever. Only two mental afflictions are abandoned forever. You cannot get rid of anger at that step. You cannot get rid of desire. You still have it. You still have jealousy. What's the other mental affliction? So you cannot have an intellectual belief in self-existence anymore. Someone came up to you and said, are you seeing things right? You say, no. And I know it. And you can never talk me into believing I am, because I know I'm not. I proudly know that I'm not seeing anything right. Okay. What's number two? Doubt. You cannot doubt Buddhism after that. And I cannot emphasize how much what that feels like, you know. I mean, you know that you, by some dumb luck, as Master Shantideva says, you have bumped into the true religion. And I'm not embarrassed to say it, and I'm not being sectarian. It is the way, you know, and you are in it. And you recognize it, and you know it at that moment. And you never have doubt again. Anything can happen. You know, a king could come and slice your fingers off and say, don't believe what you saw. And you just say, I'm sorry. You know, I know it. I know it from pramana. I know it from direct perception. No one could ever change your mind after that. No one could ever, in the least bit, dissuade you from Buddhism. Impossible. You saw your future lives. You saw the Buddha. You saw you're not crazy. You saw your own Buddhahood. So what's anyone going to tell you? You know, I mean, you get very stubborn after that. Okay. All right. All right. Again, to me, this is just the most exciting thing. You know, I finally found it. You know, and it was great. And it is quoted a lot in the monastic textbooks. Say Tsulmin, Yiche. Tsulmin, Yiche. Two things are happening here. Yiche means focusing on things. Yiche means focusing on things. Focusing, like looking at things. And then Tsulmin means the wrong way. Okay? The wrong way. And you have to add two things in your notes, okay? What are the things you're focusing on? Good things, pleasant things and unpleasant things, okay? These are the focus of Yiche. Pleasant things and unpleasant things. You're focusing on nice feelings, nice events, nice people, nice food, you know, nice things that happen, nice weather, and you're focusing on the things that are unpleasant. Boss at work screaming, you know, not having enough money, car broke down, car hit somebody or something, you know, all these unpleasant things in life. That's the object of Yiche in number 3 here. Tsulmin means you are taking them the wrong way. And to me, this is the key of everything. This is the key of everything. Tsulmin means you are interpreting them the wrong way. You are misunderstanding them. Okay, that's to me the guts of this whole process. Yeah.
Is misunderstanding the judgment that they are nice, that they are bad?
Not at all. You know, does a Buddha sit in there? By the way, that's a common, I call them Dharma rumors. You know, are you supposed to sit there and never say, this tastes good? You know, I mean, are you supposed to sit there and say, you know, this angry person who's bothering everybody in this class is not a bad person, or is not an irritating person? Of course they are. You know, I mean, we have to talk more about it, but are there such things as pleasant and unpleasant? And is a Buddhist allowed to think of them as pleasant and unpleasant? Of course. Of course. I mean, your heart tells you that your whole life and your whole spiritual path is the pursuit of happiness. You know, you are looking for to have a world where only nice things happen. And you're also looking to have a world where there's no irritating people. There's no irritating people in a Buddha paradise. It does not say in any authentic scripture that a Buddha is sitting there and there are irritating people there and they're learning to put up with them. You know, that they have achieved some extraordinary ability to put up with lousy people. And that's what Buddha paradise is like. It doesn't say that. The Sambhogakaya has 5 characteristics. One of them is that Buddha, due to their past karma, is forced to see themselves surrounded by high-level bodhisattvas. Sorry. You know, I mean, enlightenment, you know, no, I mean, truly, enlightenment does not consist of learning to put up with an unsatisfactory world. It consists of transforming that world into a perfect world. Okay? And there won't be any irritating fellow students in that world. They'll all be perfect. They'll all be wonderful. They will never say anything bad here. So it's not that you're just supposed to, it's not that the goal of Buddhist practice is to sit there and to learn how to sit there with perfect equanimity and put up with whatever good and bad things happen to you. That's not the point. Your heart tells you that. You look at a picture of a Buddha paradise. It's not like there's all these ugly people running around and all these car accidents and cancer and irritating people and the Buddha sitting there and putting up with it perfectly, you know. It's not the point. It's really not the point. That's a Dharma rumor. And your heart tells you that. You will not be satisfied until you reach some kind of bliss. You won't stop until you reach some kind of bliss. And you're right. You shouldn't. You can do it. So what's the point here? What are you doing wrong? You see, that's the key. What am I doing wrong that causes me all my problems? You are taking that's the Tsulmin. Wrong way means you are all the time interpreting that pleasant thing or that unpleasant thing as being self-existent. Okay? In the back of your mind, all the time, is this undercurrent that says this thing is self-existent. Now you tell me what that means. By the way, just take their dependent origination and turn it around. Okay? So the stupidest kind, the lowest kind, I shouldn't say stupidest, the lowest kind of interpretation would be, this pleasant thing doesn't have any causes. Okay? Are you thinking that consciously? You know, as you eat the pecan pie, you know, is there a part of your mind that's saying, this thing has no causes, this thing has no causes? You know, I mean, no. Okay? It's an infected, it's called lepa. Lepa means it infects your very consciousness. What's the next interpretation of? This thing has no parts. Okay? I mean, as you bite off a part, you know, you're thinking this thing has no parts. Let's skip those. Let's go to the big one. This thing is not something that I'm seeing in my mind because of my past karma. There's a part of you that came from your past life and that asserted it in the womb, that's saying all the time as you experience something nice, this is anything except a projection forced on me by my past good deeds. Okay? There's a part of you that says, this is not coming from my good deeds. This really exists out there. You know, I took a tape. I went around New York. I collected all the cassette tapes of my favorite songs from my high school days. And I copied the one song off each one and threw out the tape, you know, until I got a whole tape of what I consider the greatest music in the world, right? And then I played it for somebody who was like 10 years younger than me or something. And I said, listen to this, you know, and put on Jimi Hendrix, you know. And they're like, you know. And I said, and that is, you see, there was a part of my mind that said, this thing is self-existently beautiful music. You see? This thing is beautiful in and of itself. This thing is beautiful external of me. You know, regardless of me, this music is the best rock and roll that was ever written. You know, there's a part of my mind that believes that. And when the person's face was like, you know, like that, I got kind of hurt, you know, I'm saying, you know, don't you like it, you know? And they said, no, you know. And then it's because it's not self-existent. But we hold it to be self-existent. You know, you get upset with somebody when they don't see things the way you do. Forget it, they can't see things the way you do. You know, what's right, what's wrong, what's the good thing to do, what's the bad thing to do, how should we eat this afternoon, what should we eat, you know? According to me, it's Lou's Schoolboy cookies, you know? But nobody sees it that way. Nobody else can see it. Nobody will see it that way. It's all different. And you get mental afflictions about that. You believe that that pleasure is not coming from your past good deeds. And I'll give an example. Somebody else's wife, okay? Somebody else's spouse or girlfriend, or for an ordained person, any person of the opposite sex, and you're like attracted to them, okay? And you want to have some relationship with them, you know, you want to have the pleasant feeling of that or something like that. This I'm talking about pleasant objects, okay? And then it would seem to be that the way to achieve that pleasant feeling would be to have a relationship with them. It seems like if I want a pleasant feeling from that guy's wife, well, then I should just get to know her and find an excuse to take her somewhere and have pleasant feeling with her. That's ignorance, because it's not understanding the nature of where that attractive thing came from. Okay? Where does an attractive person of the opposite sex come from, karmically? It comes from your celibacy or your faithfulness to your spouse. You know, it comes from keeping your morality. If you ever meet a person of the opposite sex who looks nice, there's only one karmic reason that can cause that. And that's because you kept your vows or you were faithful. Okay? So what's the best way to ruin it? You commit adultery or break your vows, you know? I mean, you have to be in that mode. You know, if you have an opportunity to eat the last piece of cake, and there's 3 other people who would like some, where did that cake come from? It came from giving it to someone else. What's the best way to assure you don't get cake for a long time? You know? Take the last piece. You know, take the last piece. That's sumin yiche. To think that cake, that you can consummate your pleasure with that cake or that woman by breaking your vows or by doing something immoral is sumin yiche. That's not where they came from. Where do you think they came from? Do you think that you will get that pleasure because you want it? It doesn't happen that way, because many times we want something and we don't get it. So that wanting is not the cause of getting. What the cause of getting is giving. So the stupidest thing if you want to get some pleasure is to take it wrongly. Okay? Does that mean you can't enjoy any pleasure at all? I mean, look at the Dalai Lama, look at Ken Rinpoche. Do they enjoy a nice dinner? Do they enjoy a nice TV show? Do they enjoy a nice baseball game? Come on. Of course they do. But they wouldn't break their vows to do it. You know, that's a difference. So Tsumin Yiche leads to the following. Say ducha, shedang. Ducha, shedang. Ducha, wanting things. Shedang, hating things. Okay? Wanting things and hating things. Liking things and disliking things. I think somewhere between 3 and 4 is some kind of, secret of life. Somewhere between 3 and 4 is the secret of life, Somehow you go from misunderstanding a pleasant object and misunderstanding an unpleasant object to wanting and hating. Somewhere between, somehow 3, I think this is the guts of Maitreya's statement, somehow you go from 3 to 4. Somehow something wrong happens between 3 and 4 that causes all our trouble, okay? And the scriptures are very clear and very careful to say that we are not talking about general wanting and general not wanting, Does a Buddha like sentient beings? Of course, Does a Buddha like to go to hell? No. By the way, there's this big debate in the monastery. Do Buddhas have to take refuge? Do Buddhas take refuge? Of course. Why? They don't want to go to hell. So is it wrong to like anything? No, Buddhas love people. Maitreya's name means love. Should we change his name to equanimity or something, does the Buddha, I was translating some Shantideva this morning. He says, hate your mental afflictions, Is it wrong to hate your mental afflictions? No, you should hate your mental afflictions, okay? You should spit on them. You should beat them up. You should attack them, This is, you have carte blanche to do any mean thing you want to your mental afflictions. Okay, so obviously liking and disliking is a certain kind of liking and disliking. What kind? The kind that came from this. Which is the kind that came from this, which is the kind that came from that. The head bone connected to the neck bone, it goes like that, The hating is bad if it's been motivated by misunderstanding the unpleasant object, which has been caused by your tendency to see things as self-existent, which has been caused by the seed that you were born with, okay? It's not your fault, okay? Don't have to feel guilty. It's that other guy's fault. Okay. Yeah?
So when you hate your mental afflictions and you spit on them with anger...
Yeah. Well, it doesn't mean real anger. It doesn't mean like... It does mean with some kind of, force.
Understanding that they're the cause of...
They are the ultimate enemy. We should take all the anger and hatred in the world and direct it at our own mental afflictions. Take all that frustration you have with New York, and aim it at your own mental afflictions. Take all the times... I was walking down the street yesterday and there's some guy standing there and I'm like, if you don't move in 3 milliseconds, you're going to get bumped, okay? And he got bumped, okay? Then I heard him speaking some foreign language. I realized the reason he's not moving correctly in New York sidewalk traffic is that he's got a map in his hand. He's trying to figure out where he is, And so there's something going on between here, okay? And it has to do with the 3 spheres, okay, with the 3 elements, okay? What was it that the guy who was getting his fingers cut off, where did he break this? What did he do differently? Why didn't he get mad at the king? He didn't have this. You got to go backwards. This is called lungdo. You got to go trace backwards. He didn't get mad at the king because he didn't think of the king in the wrong way. Now, very important point. Did it hurt?
Yes.
Yes, and don't ever think it didn't hurt. Don't ever think that. Of course it hurt. If you don't think so, let me do one of your fingers, okay? It hurt. No question that it hurt. But he did not get to step number 4 because he didn't have step number 3. Whew, miracle. He did not think of the king in a self-existent way. He did not think of the king in a self-existent way. He did not think of himself in a self-existent way. And he did not think that this thing is happening self-existently. Which means he didn't think everything was not his own projections forced on him by his past karma. I'll repeat that, okay? He was totally aware that the existence of the king and the existence of his finger getting cut off and the existence of this unfortunate event, which was really just bad luck. I mean, the king showed up at the wrong time, right? All of those things were events and objects that were happening because of his own mind. Okay? His own mind was creating those things. What happens if all you have is pure karma and the king comes to cut your fingers off? What happened when the demons shot arrows at the Buddha as he sat under the Bodhi tree getting enlightened? Halfway in the air, they turned to flowers. And that's not bullshit, that's real. It really does change to flowers. For him, you know, for an enlightened being with only pure karma, anyone can do any kind of harm towards you. And all you're going to get is flowers. You know, like you're going to have trouble if you have hay fever or something. You know, because it's like, you know, because there's going to be all these people trying to hurt you. And all you get is nice things out of it. And you'll see it will happen. People will make plots to hurt you. And we'll all work it out, and then they'll spring the trap, you know, and then suddenly you get some new house or something like that. It'll happen. It happens. And it's because reality itself is changing. And it's not that you're trying to learn to put up with being shot with arrows. It's not like, oh, you know, and, oh, equanimity, you know. It's not that. It's really flowers. The reality changes. It has to change because it's a projection. And that's the difference between, one more point, and then I want to get the punchline. Why didn't he get mad? What is he, stupid? He wants to meet this guy again? You know? There's this thing called perpetuation. He would be perpetuating. The most stupid thing in the world you can do when your boss is yelling at you is what? Yell back. Because that is, according to all this theory, the only way to get a boss to yell at you. Which there's an unfortunate implication there, that the thing that comes into your heart to do most naturally is the complete opposite of what you really should be doing. You know, that's a very unfortunate fact. That's why samsara is a circle. That's why it's self-perpetuating. Because the most natural reaction is the one that creates that being again. I don't know why that is. You know, I don't know why exactly that is. It seems to be something that's existed for all time. You know, that the reaction that comes up in your heart to yell back is in fact the only way you can get that boss to come back again in the future to yell at you. Okay, so there's this whole thing about the wheel of life. Cut it at link number 1. Cut it at link number 1. Stop link number 1. That's this one. Stop seeing the 3 elements the wrong way. Understand where the boss came from. Understand why you're sitting there. Understand why he walked in the door just now and caught you on the phone with one of your students. You know, understand why it happened and stop doing it. And then you can stop your mental afflictions. One last point, and then I'll go to Carol's question. Does it mean that you should not resist evil? I mean, if the boss comes in and is physically hurting someone, are you supposed to stand there and say, oh, projection, 3 elements, yelling boss, person getting yelled at, hope they don't get mad, you know? No, you must resist. You know, you must take steps. You know? If it's unjust, you know, if there's an injustice going on, and if you see without a hint of anger in your mind, now that disqualifies all of us. But let's go on theoretically, okay? Now, if you go on and theoretically that you're totally happy, here's a chance to straighten out my boss. I don't have any anger at all that he screamed at me. You could punch him, you can scream at him, you could embarrass him in front of other people, anything, really. As a bodhisattva, you're even required to at a certain stage. You know, if there's an opportunity that would be very helpful to him, and that's another trick, okay? I mean, is it really going to change him? But if you saw that it would change him a lot, if you punched him right then, out of perfect compassion, no problem. You know, it's a great thing to do. Tsongkhapa says what? Do you remember in his commentary on the Bodhisattva Vows? Not only is it not a bad karma, you are collecting an extraordinary virtuous karma by punching him. Okay, he says that. Are we capable of it? You know, be honest, check your mind, see if there's any hatred there. And then check secondarily if it would really change him. And if it would, if both of those conditions are there, which is unlikely, then do the necessary, as they say. Okay? She had one question, then we'll take a break. Yeah.
The person who's shooting the arrow at the Buddha, what
Yeah.
do they see? Do they see a change?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I think it could go either way. You know, that's my easy way out, okay? If they had pretty good karma, they might see it change the flowers halfway and say, oh my God, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. If they had worse karma, I think they might see the arrow hit him, or the arrow hit the tree or something. You know what I mean? It depends completely on their own karma. There's no inherent reality to the arrow. Okay? Yeah.
If someone's hurting something else, can you shift the emphasis from your anger at the person to the deed being done?
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah, absolutely. It's totally appropriate to be pissed off at the anger in the other person's mind. Anger is our common enemy. You know, whether it's in your mind or my mind, we have to fight that. Anger is our real enemy. Like if all the military budgets of the world went into fighting the real enemy, which is the anger in all of our minds, we could pull it off, I think. You know, there'd be huge, you know, anger treatment centers and stuff. You know, yeah, so it's appropriate to hate the mental afflictions in anyone's mind. Yeah.
What about attachment?
Same. Ignorant attachment,
Yeah.
which is motivated by going from 3 to 4. Not being attached to helping sentient beings or something like that. Okay, yeah. Yeah, let's do fire after break. I have a feeling we should stop, because it's when you're high you should stop and not when you're already tired. Okay, so take a nice break. Take like we'll come back at 11. Okay.
With Caroline's question, if the person shooting the arrows is very